All right, good evening, listeners. Welcome to episode 23 of Motley Crude. I'm Kevin, and this evening with me, I've got Ottawa's premier team tournament organizer, Andrew. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you,
I'm
buddy?
doing pretty good. And then I have a very disappointed Orion's Wild Hunt aficionado, Ryan. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. So yeah, this evening, of course, we're going to be discussing the new Wood Elf Arcane Journal that came out. More specifically, we'll be looking at the Orion's Wild Hunt Army of Infamy, as well as like the general rules and stuff. But before we get to all of that, let's do a bit of a hobby roundtable, see what's new in everybody's hobby. Let's kick it off with Ryan this week.
Um, what have I done? Since last time, really, all I've done is figure out what army I'm taking to CTC next weekend and put it on the table next to my painting area.
Okay, nice. Do you still have painting to do for CTC or?
Um, None of it, like, because Denny dropped the requirements to what they're going to be. So it's like 99% the models that I painted for SBOT
Yeah,
Toronto.
yeah.
So like I could make the bases prettier or like touch up details, but all the models are painted enough for what is happening.
Good. And are you settled on a list?
I submitted it a couple hours ago. It's the one I sent you the other day
Okay.
where it's like the two barons and the wizard and the green knight.
Okay. So you didn't go for kneecapping yourself this time.
No, what? So I kneecap myself this time because I can only play 4 of the 5 rounds before I have to leave the event anyway.
Fair.
So instead of showing up with a terrible army and then just being ridiculous, I'm going to show up and just troll people for 4 games and then leave and be ineligible to win the event. Um,
Okay, that works. That works.
yeah.
I mean, if you win 4 games, you'll still do pretty well. Like
Oh,
you'll still be
absolutely.
top 10 for
I,
sure.
I'm
Maybe
not
top
even
five.
claiming I'm going to win 4 games. I'm just going to show up with an army that is harder than what I typically show up with
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I don't want to think.
Fair enough. Awesome, Andrew. What's new in your hobby, man? Have you are you past the CHTT hangover?
Yeah, for the most part. Now we're just getting ready to start planning CCBB. So we're probably gonna have some discussions next week on our intents going into that, and tickets probably will be going on sale soon after.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll step up the number of players a little bit this year for Old World, or are we not there yet?
We'll see. So I'm committing to making 5 more Old World tables, which will allow us to bump up without outside terrain up to 50 players. I
Nice.
think I think that's a realistic sort of
Yeah,
target for growth for this year. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe we'll sell it right away. That'd be awesome, but I'm not sure if we're at that point yet, at least in the Ottawa area community, even with like outside people coming in. So I like to be more conservative with my predictions on like, yeah, we're gonna sell it like immediately. It's gonna be crazy, like, and then be disappointed. I'd rather be wrong in the other direction. So
for sure. Yeah, that would be like I think a 20% increase over last year almost, which would be great. And we
yeah,
almost sold out last year, so
and like 50 players, that's pretty fucking respectable if we get
that's
that. So
wild.
like last
Yeah.
year we had 38 with we sold out, but we had 2 drops, so we were at like 38, 36 maybe. But at one point we were sold out. So I think realistically, like 50 is not too big of a stretch. I think we'll be fine going that high.
Yep, yeah, I think it's achievable. I mean, like just in our local community, there's more people playing than last year for sure. So
Yeah. I do
okay,
want to do like I guess like spoiler alert, I do kind of want to do the prizing a little different.
okay,
So I kind of want to keep the no painting requirement that we did last year, even though I told everyone last year that it's only for a year. But I think I want to keep that just to remove barriers of entry, but instead have like the main award for the event be like an overall. So painting would be a requirement of that.
Okay.
I'd have to talk with Ryan a bit about it and also like look at how we could implement that, but it'd be like, you can't win the top prize of the tournament unless your army's painted, and it'd be like an aggregate of like your generalship score plus like maybe sports. I don't know how I'd fit that in, but at least like a painting part of that as well.
Oh, it's so early 2000s. I love it.
Yeah.
I know, that's why I want to do it. But also just those people who don't have painted armies yet or who are, just getting into the game now. Because,
Yeah.
like, oh, Wood Elves just came out. I want to play Wood Elves, but they won't be able to paint 2,000 points in what, like 2-3 months. So I still want to leave room for those types of players to come and attend anyways, even if their army's not fully painted, but not also change the sort of culture of the event to be like, oh well, painting's not important, so like everyone just shows up with random unpainted shit. Like I want to find a way to strike that balance.
I think
I
we
don't
can
want to
do
look
that.
like I don't want to look like early 2000s fucking like War Machine tournaments where nothing was painted, but at the same time I want to leave room for those like newbies to come to the event
40K
with
art
paint.
boys.
Yeah, like I don't want that shit, but I got to find a way to strike like a balance there.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. Like, if somebody was picking up Wood Elves right now, painting a 2,000 point army in 2 or 3 months is hard. Like, I don't know if I could do it. Yeah, I mean, it is a big commitment for sure. When we were
Well,
in the
really
lead,
contract paint.
yeah, fair. In the lead up to CHTT, Cleary was painting his dwarf army, and like I think he painted the 2,000 point army in like 3 weeks or something crazy. And I was watching the progress like through our like little team chat that we had going, and I was like, man, I've painted like 3 units during that time, and I'm painting basically every day. But you're fucking just crushed out an entire army. So anyway, some people paint way quicker than I do for sure. Um, Yeah. Okay. All right. On my end, there's a few things. So I have been painting still. I decided to paint the pair of Tauruses as quickly as possible, the 3D models that I bought, and then I was wondering if I was going to take to CTC or not. At the time of recording right now, there's like 6 days left, basically to the event. I have the two like the mounts, the beasts are painted, the bulls. I just need to paint the two riders. That should not be a massive issue. So that's good. I played a single game since our last episode into New Lizardman. And let me tell you guys, the Slan has had a definite glow up since the last time I played against the Slan. It was still a bit of a hard matchup for my opponent, though. Chaos Dwarf victory, but it was a good game. And then I had, like you, Ryan, massive list angst and ongoing debates with myself over CTC, sort of to see what I was going to bring there. I have not submitted my list yet, so if this episode lasts over 3.5 hours, I may be screwed for the event and submit my list late. So there's that. I sort of know where I'm going. Like I 95% know where I'm going, but there's still a few little things I'm hemming and hawing over. I think it's mainly because I haven't had nearly as much time to play with the Renegades as I have with the regular Grand Army. So there's more things that I want to try, but haven't really tried out yet. So those are in the back of my head for sure. Okay. Any thoughts on all of that? No, all right, perfect. Let's get rolling here. So let's start with some news. Ryan, you want to hit us with the upcoming events because there's quite a few that have popped up.
Of course. So next weekend, 24-25 May, here in Ottawa, is the Canadian Tabletop Championships, being with the Old World Tournament being run by our occasional guest, Danny. That event, I believe, is sold out now with
It
26
is.
players.
Yeah.
Same weekend, if you happen to be in Hamilton, there's a tournament at Black Knight Games. 7 to 8 June, also here in Ottawa at the Nepean Sports Complex, is the Ottawa Old World GT, which I am TOing and is being put on by the Red Dragon, some some intersection of Dan and the Red Dragon putting that on, but I will be TOing that event. There's plenty
Actually
of
going to
space.
that one now too.
There we go. But yeah, there's
Nice.
lots of space left at that one.
Andrew will start playing again. This is a subject for the next episode for sure.
Yeah, how to shake off the rust.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, no, carrying on. And then 14-15 June, there's a tournament in Toronto called the Rising Storm. I forget. I think it's at Sword and Board. I forget where it is. And then, of course, end of August, we have Capital City Bloodbath being put on by Andrew and the lovely guys from Canhammer. And then 13-14 September, there is a GT being hosted at the Abyss in Montreal.
Which some of us may go to. Yeah.
Correct.
We're all sort of discussing. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So a lot of stuff happening. There's some events this weekend also, which we missed shouting out, but a bunch of stuff is going on. So it's really communities popping around here. So this is good stuff. And then in other bits of news, we have a new Warcom article that came out about the Wood Elves. Whatever they spoke about that was relating to like gameplay and rules is whatever, because of course the book has leaked since then, so it's all irrelevant. However, there's some interesting stuff in there. They brought up for instance, they teased some another Arcane Journal after Beastman and Cathay. They discussed Cathay's sort of being shoehorned into the old world as like an expeditionary force arriving in Marienburg. And then they also told us that the story only jumps back and forth like within a sort of a span of a decade. Any thoughts on all that new information, as well as maybe a guess on the Arcane Journal after Cathay? Let's start with Andrew.
I think, like, in terms of them continuing the Arcane Journal model after Cathay, I think we've all sort of speculated that was going to be the case.
Yeah.
I don't think that's really, crazy news from them. And I think they've mentioned that before in other Warcom articles anyway, saying like, we're doing these ones, but potentially you might see Arcane Journal like Battle X, where it won't even be just one faction in the Arcane Journal, but it might be like, okay, Bretonnians versus Tomb Kings, and it'd be a list of each faction fighting in that sort of battle or war that Arcane Journal focuses on. I think we've all speculated that that's probably going to be the case going forward anyway, so it's just cool to see that. Maybe not that exact model, but at least knowing that the Arcane Journals are going to continue. And it will be an interesting way for them to potentially, fingers crossed, bring in some of the legacy factions at some point, when they get phased out of Age of Sigmar, or if they get their act together and just realize they'd rather do money instead of weird intercompany politics.
Yeah, sure.
But other than that, it's really interesting. I'm excited for it.
Awesome. You want to toss out a guess for what the next journal is?
Oh, fuck. I couldn't even begin to imagine.
All right, fair. Okay, that's fine. For me, this is like, it's all interesting stuff. I find the 10-year decade as a sort of a frame of reference to be really interesting. Ryan knows this for sure. Is the Battle of Prague within that 10-year gap, or is it not? Period, or is it not?
I don't think so, because the Great War Against Chaos is 30
Like
years.
30 years,
in the
yeah.
future.
Yeah, okay.
And that is like the kind of like peak of that.
Yeah. So this whole sort of narrative span that they're having is all in it's all the prequel to the Great War Against Chaos. It's like not going to touch.
Basically it's like the Vampire Wars have ended. The Great War of Chaos hasn't started.
Yeah, we're in the interlude between the two. Super interesting. So that's cool. And then the journal, like you're right, Andrew, that they did mention they'll probably keep continuing to do journals in the future. It's interesting though, but they had like a pretty, like the sentence was a bit of a tease, where they said in the article, after Grand Cathay, we have another interesting Arcane Journal planned, which redacted after. So my guess on what that is, I'm going to swing for the fences here and say it's Kislev. Just because I want to see Kislev. for no other reason. And we know they did work on it, so they're some way towards getting there. Thoughts on the article and the new stuff, Ryan?
Yeah, again, as Andrew said, like it's a lot of what we were kind of expecting. And I do have to appreciate, like, I really like the idea of like a $24 to $30 arcane journal that I can take or leave being the things that come out, instead of like what they did with Heresy, where it's like, by the way, we smashed things you don't care about, matched play rules, and some campaign stuff into this $80 hardback.
Yeah.
You go buy it now. Whereas these are kind of like, okay, is this interesting to me? I'll grab it. If it's not, I won't. But they're like, if they keep the size and format of the arcane journals as well as the title, um, it's a good price to me for, whether they add a whole new model line and a new faction, or they just drop, you know, two new ways of using existing armies, or, some kind of crazy mercenary combination of things. All of that is very, very viable, very cool. I also
Yeah.
like the bounded period that they've created. Like, I know there's people that want to see like progress and stuff, but I kind of like this commitment to like, we're going to flesh out this decade that all of this is happening in before we start running too deep into other stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and they mentioned in the in their article actually that there's like they're setting up the beats right now for this big decade or this decade that we're in, where there's like it's like a sort of three conflicts happening at the same time with Friedel the Chainmaker, setting up her fiefdom, they called it, in I think it's Westerland or anyways, what becomes the Wasteland later, in sort of the north of the Empire, the invasion by Cetra, and then some in the southeast, and then some big war out in Bretonia. So like they're setting the groundwork for some more development for sure.
And it's setting up a nice scenario where like everyone is in conflict, which makes the game like as a overall idea work pretty well. And if I had to really guess on what was going to be next, I actually think like Kislev's a solid guess. I also think this might be an opportunity for them to do something like bring vampire counts out of Legends. Given that they just finished replacing basically all of the legacy vampire counts models.
Right.
And so, they've, much like Beastmen were a little bit ago, they now have all of these things that they're still readily able to produce that they could turn on a dime and
repackage and have the first wave ready.
I'm just fascinated by the pictures in these articles of like the unit sizes actually being just like little like blocks of like 15 state troopers fighting 10 eternal guard. Like,
well, that I was having some reflections about how good or not good cavalry is in this game, and that's exactly how people were playing at the beginning of the edition. Remember when people were like, oh, the big infantry blocks of 8th edition are dead, here comes MSU of 10 to 20 models, and then suddenly cavalry was amazing. That's kind of changed now, so cavalry's not so amazing anymore. But I think those pictures were taken a year ago as far as I'm concerned.
Anyway, it's just interesting. But I think there's a lot of opportunity here with the arcane journals, and I like it.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and I think you're onto something for sure with vampire counts. I don't see those guys remaining a legacy faction for forever or even for a long time, frankly. I mean, between the fact that they now have two ranges which they could pull apart like really easily, and fairly like the old world range is not even that old. It's not like old metal models and stuff like that. And then also that they're central to the story. I know that after the Vampire Wars, like from a lore perspective, they're sort of on the down and out. But that being said, they're like smack bang in the middle of the old world though. So like sort of all makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good. So we've covered this little bit. So enough news for tonight. Let's talk about the Arcane Journal. So I'm going to start with Andrew here. Andrew, what are like your overall thoughts on the journal? Do you like what it brings to the table? Do you think it opens up new play styles for the Wood Elves? Do you see it as being on par with the other arcane journals, like a hit or a miss, that kind of stuff? Just your broad thoughts.
I think it's good. Um, Maybe not super competitive, which we can get into, but it does at least give one sort of vastly different way to make a Wood Elf army in the terms of the Wild Hunt, which we'll cover. That's a very drastically different than sort of like the current Wood Elf meta list that you're seeing at tournaments. So I think that's cool in that it does that. Unfortunately, I don't think it is super competitive. It's very themey and fluffy, and it's going to be like fun to play narrative games with the list in this book because they do very fit into that like niche of what their respective like themes are for the Wood Elves. So I really like that aspect of it. The magic lore in there's like pretty decent, so I think you'll see some play out of that. We haven't had the story aspect of the book leak yet. We just saw like the rules, but I assume that's going to be really cool, setting up sort of this ongoing conflict between the Beastmen and the Wood Elves and Athalorian, and sort of give you insight into what actually is happening there. Because at least back in 8th, sort of Athalorian was like this place that they never really released a lot of lore on. Like there's always like speculation or sort of like hints at like what it's like being there. But there was not really a lot of sort of like here's exactly what's going on, or like here's the things that go down in Athalorian. So it would be neat to see some of that insight come out from this arcane journal. So I think that's really exciting. But in terms of like overall power, I think it's probably on the lower spectrum of the arcane journals.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely on that last statement. I think I'm disappointed in this Wood Elf Arcane Journal. I was looking forward to it quite a bit. I have enough models Wood Elves lying around to start an army if I so chose to, but I'm not. I'm not really. This Arcane Journal hasn't pushed me in that direction. I think the two armies of infamy are not great, and I know that we've talked a lot about them not like arcane journals and armies of infamy not being a means through which the design studio tries to fix armies and make them more competitive, and I agree with that. However, both those armies of infamy kind of fall flat for me, and they don't really bring too much to the table. Like they restrict your list building a little bit, and then there's like rules that are I think arguably fluffy, and that's about it. Like there's so few units in there compared to like if you think of I don't know Wolves of the Sea or the Kracian War Host or what have you. There's very few new units, which I also find to be a disappointment. And then the book doesn't do much to sort of really help out anything except characters. So I think like and I'll like from a big hand small map perspective, what was kind of working still for Wood Elves competitively right now is the characters in the army after they nerfed Sisters pretty hard. I mean, poison shooting is poison shooting, although I think we've found that other armies do poison shooting better. So, like, characters were carrying, which is the case for a lot of armies, but characters are sort of carrying that army, and they just got a lot better with this Arcane Journal. I think you could call it Arcane Journal, Lore of the Wilds, and Kindreds, and that would sort of explain in a nutshell how I sort of see things right now. So, but like for me, absolutely 100%, and we'll talk about it soon. Like Wood Elves are a stronger army as a result of the additional rules that you can pile in on your characters. But the book, as far as theme and options, I think for me is a disappointment. What are your thoughts, Ryan?
So I'm gonna go in a kind of the same direction I went with Empire on this one. Is I think they succeeded at theme, even if it's not the theme that is necessarily like what you were hoping or fishing for. Like both, like both armies definitely represent the thing that they're trying to be, at least from the descriptions I've read. But I totally agree that in terms of like the value to a Wood Elf player from a like competitive or even just like making armies better perspective is really just random shit you can pull into the Grand Army and use more so than like I mean I'm a crazy person and I'm still going to build a Wild Hunt army. But
Undeterred, Ryan.
never. Like light cavalry is my existence.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those things where like I totally agree like the Wild Hunt and Towson's whatever the fuck Towson's army is.
Host. Yeah, the host of Towson.
Yeah, just bunch of dudes and trees. Like neither of them is super inspiring from a like competitive perspective. But as Andrew pointed out, like for narrative play or theme, like the Wild Hunt army is very Wild Hunt, which we'll get into shortly. Like it succeeds at being the thing it's supposed to be, even if the thing it's supposed to be is not good.
Yeah. 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 I guess what I'm getting at, like, I wasn't even looking at, of course, I went into competitive comments because that's sort of what I do here, but like, I wasn't even looking at it primarily from that perspective. I just think the theme in other arcane journals, they've managed to dial it up to 11, and immediately when we read, for instance, I keep going back to this one because it hit really hard for me, but like Wolves of the Sea, we were like, okay, I'm doing this, bring me Conan the Army, cut out all the guys in full plate, like the Chaos Warrior guys, give me, 5 or 6 new units, like crazy rules,
So
like pre-game
I guess
duels.
what I'm saying is like if you go all the way back to like our second or third episode,
Yeah.
or conversations you and I had a year and a half ago, like this army we're going to talk about in this episode is exactly the thing that I've been saying I want this for Wood Elves.
Okay. All right.
For almost 2 years. So I guess what I'm getting is like
regardless of what they were doing, yeah.
What I'm saying is like would them inventing another way to use Glade Riders have been cool? Sure. Do I need any of that to have the Wild Hunt army that I've envisioned for 18 months? No. And also, they technically gave it to me just without renaming the unit. It's just an upgrade I can buy and change the role of the unit. But again, we'll hit that later.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. So you were sold on the cons. It's like me with the Minotaur Army of Infamy. Like I'm already sold.
Yeah.
Whatever's happening.
Like it's one of those things where like, yeah, I could take Wild Riders and Core. Sweet. I don't have to take infantry. Cool. Those are the only 2 things I needed this army to do.
Okay. All right. You got it. You got the Glade Rider army for sure. Awesome.
Yeah. And like Wolves of the Sea is kind of an unfair comparison because you're literally picking sort of the best themed list probably out of all the arcane journals. Like that one had the most like flavor out of like all the sort of armies for me.
So okay.
That regard.
Yeah.
Like
it is
maybe
a very
the Slayer
strong
army
one.
with the unofficial Slayer army is like the other one like up there with in terms of like let's go all in on this one fucking theme, but like the rest are still kind of just like X thing light or here's my all cav list. Like yes, the other arcane journals are themey, but I think Wolves of the Sea was like the most themey of like here's our fucking barbarian raider army.
Yeah, it's for sure like a high watermark as far as Armies of Infamies go. But like I agree with you. But I think there are some more heavy hitters out there. Like for instance, like I think Bretonnian Exiles has a really cool theme to it. And a lot of new things sort of slapped on in there to make it feel very different from the Grand Army. Another example which comes to mind is Knightly Orders in the Empire. I think is really is completely different than the Grand Army and is super themey, and like there's layers of different rules you can add on based on which order you're representing and all that kind of stuff. Like those 2 with Wolves of the Sea, with dwarves, as you mentioned, I think are all good examples. Bad examples for me are sort of the ones in this book, I think, and then stuff like Heralds of Darkness or whatever they're called, or Nomadic Wall, which just don't really hit the mark. But but we'll have a chance to talk about it at length for sure. But you're right, Andrew. I did of course default to the best example to prove my point. Okay, so how are we going to structure this book review? So we're going to do 4 things this evening. We're going to talk about the new rules, so Kindreds firstly, and then the new Lore of the Wilds. Then we'll talk about Orion's Wild Hunt, the army composition and its rules. We're going to talk about new unit entries. In this case, only 2 of them, Orion and the Beast Pack. And then we'll look at magic items. So that's that. So without further ado, Ryan, can you explain to us what kindreds are and the difference between altar and noble kindreds?
Yes. So kindreds, like macro out of game perspective, are like a social grouping within the Wood Elves of that character or group of people may belong to. Think of them as tribes or whatever. So within that, within game terms, you have kind of 2 groups. You have your altars, which are like shapeshifters, wildkin, part beast. Like it's almost like non-chaos beast elves,
Sure.
in a sense. And then you have your nobles, which are just your classic like royalty within the Wood Elves. And so a character can belong to either of those types, but not both with these upgrades. And they work very similar to like Bretonnian virtues or
Elven honors.
Elven honors, yeah. Like it's just a thing you can purchase for your character, and they, get the benefits of it. There are some drawbacks to like the altar kindreds. If someone's part of an altar kindred and they join a unit, the unit can't use that character's leadership. Which is fine. And it also doesn't seem to be mutually exclusive. So like it's not like virtues where they can only be taken once. Like you can have multiple. It seems like you could have multiple characters all belonging to the same kindred.
Yeah, by my read, you can. You just can't have multiple kindreds on the single model.
Yeah, which is fine. And also the altar kindreds are nobles and mages only.
Yeah. And I think, Ryan, if my read of this is correct, the altar kindreds, you can't use the leadership in the unit, but if your general is like in an altar kindred and he's not in a unit, you can still use him for like purposes of
He, like nothing turns off inspiring presence. It's just the like I totally get why guys are not going to listen to the like bear
the weird bear man
trying to lead their unit, like just like frothing at the mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Not going to follow that guy. It's fine.
Yeah, or the weird cat lady. Exactly. Okay, awesome. So those are kindreds. Sorry, Andrew, why don't you kick off the aspect of the hound? I think you're muted, Andrew.
I am muted. I'm just bringing up the aspect of the. Here we go. Okay, aspect of the hound. It's 20 points. Fighting as a pack, those in the kindred of the hound work together to bring down larger prey. A character who adopts the aspect of the hound in any unit they have joined may reroll hit rolls of a natural 1 during the combat phase. Pretty standard on most armies. It's cool that this goes to the whole unit that they're in if needed. And fairly cheap, 20 points, like that's not bad. Although realistically, it'll be like a handful of hits, if that, per combat phase. But I don't know. If you got an extra 20 points, not bad. Just chucking on someone.
Yeah, exactly. I think the bigger your unit, the more the more this pays off. I don't think this army is really, trends towards big units, but it's not bad for sure. I don't hate it. There are much better ones after, but like in a vacuum, this is not bad. It's just 20 points for re-rolling hits, like fine. Ryan.
Aspect of the bear. Oh no, my thoughts on the hound.
Yeah.
Yeah, it exists. Like, and small units in this army can be, or in specifically the Wild Hunt, can be a little bit different because you're usually
Mhm.
looking at stuff that's like 1 attack plus frenzy plus furious charge.
Agreed. Yeah.
So
So you get more
like
attacks. Yeah.
so like 5 models are getting like 16 attacks. Um so
Yep,
there's
that's a fair point. So you're gonna re-roll like a good 2, 3, 4 dice a turn every
yeah.
combat.
But for 20 points when I could take other
Yeah,
options is
which we'll get
not.
to
Yeah.
in a second. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take the next one. The aspect of the bear. This is a banger. So infantry or cavalry only. So you can't slap this on a dragon. I know this was going to be everybody's first thought. A character who adopts the aspect of the bear increases their strength and toughness by 1 for 15 points. This is amazing. Can you spell auto take? Because this is how you spell auto take. +1 strength and toughness for 15 points. A is a steal, and B, it doesn't even hit your magic item allocations or your spites allocations or anything. It's just here, pay 15 points, and suddenly your general or your character on stag, which are pretty decent, is now plus strength and toughness 1. This is amazing, and I think you're going to see it all the time. Yeah, I don't think I need to keep banging on this one. It's great. Ryan, what are your thoughts on the bear?
Yeah, I mean, first off, werebear is great, but 2, like, +1 strength and toughness, you can't go wrong, especially because aside from the stag and the dragon, I want to say, like, most mounts aren't increasing the toughness of your character.
Yep.
So like you got like T3 elf most of the time, which is not great.
Nope.
So
Yeah. You're right. T4 is a good break point for sure. Yeah.
Andrew?
And then
Yeah, like this is awesome, especially I don't think we mentioned yet, but um oh yeah, my thing closed. Um if you put this on a Glade Captain or Glade Lord, they're already innately strength 4. So
yeah.
you're just bumping them up to naturally strength 5 before you add on like some kind of crazy weapon or something. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. And 15 points, like that's retarded. That's super cheap for what this gives.
Incredible. Like in my army, it's 30 points to get +1 toughness. I know you could take it multiple times there, but like +1 toughness, it comes with a malice of like you lose initiative and it eats into magic items. So this is crazy good. Yeah. Okay. Andrew, aspect of the boar.
Yeah. So this one is 10 points. Kindred of the Boar are aggressive fighters who charge into the foe with reckless abandon. A character who adopts aspect of the boar improves the armor-piercing characteristics of his weapons by 1 during a turn in which it charged and gains the impact hits 1 special rule. This one's also pretty cool. Just because you're giving armor piercing to your weapons, obviously on turns you charge, but I think it makes some of the other magic items a little bit more viable because there's some decent ones out there, but they have no AP, so I think they're overlooked because of that. So being able to sort of fakely adding on AP to some of this stuff is pretty good. Like I'm just thinking sort of might, it's AP1, but having it AP2 on the charge is actually pretty decent.
Yep.
And stuff like that. So I think you might see some use out of it. The impact hits is whatever, it's just 1. It'd be nice if it gave it to like the whole unit. But yeah, it's not bad. 10 points, like fairly cheap. It's usable, especially in the Wild Hunt army. So like I don't think you'd go wrong taking it. Although again, it's overshadowed by Aspect of the Bear pretty heavily.
Agreed. Ryan.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo what he said about the bonus AP on the charge. Like, that's taken some of your spear options up to like a 2 or a 3. But then it's also giving you some play with whatchamacallit, with things like the Sword of Might or the Giant Blade or some of the other magic weapons we're going to look at, where now it's got some AP when you charge. It changes how useful it is. Also, this whole thing sets up some rather comical combos with a magic item and a great stag, where you can have a character that just is like a heavy chariot
Yeah.
for no reason. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's another decent one. It's one that's like, so I think aspect of the bear is always good, regardless of what you're doing. The aspect of the boar you kind of have to build into a little bit. It's like, I think the worst thing it's got the worst thing it's got going for it is that it also exists in the world where aspect of the bear exists. But that part aside, like, two things, I guess, Andrew, you're entirely correct that like adding an AP on the charge is excellent, and it makes some magic weapons which like you often overlook like actually legit. And so plus it lets you take a shield in a lot of those cases, which helps with the armor saves in this army. And then like understanding how this army works, if you charge in and you don't win on that turn where you're charging in, you're probably in for a bad time. So I think it all sort of feeds into that way the army plays. So it's good. And then the impact hits here we have to remember are for the character, not the mount. So unless you're really building into it with like the items we'll get to after, it's not as sexy for me as the AP. But like I think overall this is for sure playable. Ryan, because I skipped you there, the aspect of the cat.
yes. Character who adopts the aspect of the cat gains Armor Bane 1 special rule and can reroll failed rolls to hit during a challenge. So much like the virtue of, I forget which one it is that lets me reroll things during. I don't know why you'd ever like. Actually, no. Okay. There is a very particular reason you could take this, and it has to do with some of the forest spites and magic items like that all interact with benefiting you during a challenge and giving negatives to your opponent during a challenge, and just having this like weird duelist Khajiit elf situation running around for 10 points. But I still don't know if like those benefits are better than just having +1 strength and toughness for 5 more points.
Yeah, I don't think they are, except in one very particular case, the Dragon Lord. Because the Dragon Lord can't take the aspect of the bear. I think that the cat is the one you slap on the dragon, where you have, you couple this with the spites, with some of the items that you mentioned, where you like Wood Elves already have a really annoying dragon to fight in close combat. This just makes it worse because he gets to reroll all his hits, and the armor bane's cool too. So I think this one is like for me is the one you go for on the dragon.
That's fair.
Yeah. Andrew, any thoughts on the cat?
No, you guys covered most of it. Like, it's cool. I'd like to see how people come up with some kind of like crazy duelist builds, like Ryan said. But otherwise, yeah, like I can see this being on the already annoying to fight dragon character. And again, 10 points. Like all these are pretty decently
So
priced.
cheap. Yeah, so cheap. They're priced to move for sure. Okay, so this brings us to the noble kindreds. These are, so the only difference really is that you don't have the penalty of you can't use your leadership on the unit you're a part of if you're in one of these. So the first one is the Glamour Weave Kindred. I'll take this one. So this one can only be applied to Wood Elf mages. And the character belonging to the Glamour Weave has a 5+ ward save and gains the Tree Spirit special rule. So this is interesting in two parts. So the first thing is the 5+ ward save is great, and just for an army that's very flimsy. So having a ward save, fantastic. Like I'll take it any day of the week for 25 points. I mean, it's cheaper than a Talisman of Protection, and it saves that item for another character. So let's go for that. And then being able to join Tree Spirit is interesting because you could put a mage then in either a unit of dryads or Treekin or what have you. So like it opens up options to do some funky stuff. And there's some rules which we won't cover tonight that allow like that make maybe Tree Spirits a little bit more relevant in the Hosted Taliesin. So I think this is interesting. It might have play if you build towards it. And a word save is always just pretty decent. So, yeah, I like it. What are your thoughts on this bad boy, Ryan?
My only I like a 5-up ward save for 25 points. My only reservation about it is the fact that the Tree Spirit rule prevents you from joining units that aren't trees. So
Yeah.
So if you're doing this, like your wizard's either running around alone, which is an option, or you are now taking trees for the wizard to hang out with.
Yeah, and I think that's the situation for sure, Ryan. Like you're gonna put him in with trees if you're taking this kindred, and then there's just like some spells later that link up pretty well with like tree whacking. Yeah,
it all works together. I'm just saying is that's my only reservation about it. Like if I want to use my wizard for anything other than tree stuff, I'll go pay the 5 extra points for a Talisman of Protection.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Andrew, any thoughts on this?
No, I think you guys really covered it. Like 25 point, 5 board save, pretty good sale. The extra stuff is whatever. I just want to look. Like you can still have your mage mounted, right? So like, if you have your mage on a horse and it's hanging out next to some of your stuff anyway, like you still get your lookouts or whatever. So like, how many mages bunker up in units to begin with in Wood Elves? Or do they usually float around on the side?
You'll see them sometimes often with Glade Riders, I think, just for like a bit like what the Warriors of Chaos do with Morada Horsemen. So I guess, but you could keep them beside. That works too.
Yeah. I've seen them on an eagle frequently too. Yeah. But
so there you go, 5 board save on an eagle.
Take it. Yeah.
Okay. You can make your eagle like some kind of weird like tree construct that flies. Like it has cool modeling potential.
A treegle. Yeah.
Well, like BJ's dragon is that like weird like wood dragon, and all of its like arms are like tree branches and stuff, or its wings are tree branches.
Like I'll give them this. Like the Age of Sigmar range has nailed the like wood elf meets tree construct meets insect thing.
Yeah.
Like there is some super
very
cool
particular
stuff.
Yeah.
But like the Taliesin army could use some of that.
Agreed.
So anyway.
Awesome. Let's go on to the Eternal Kindred, Ryan.
Yes. So for 20 points, an infantry only nobler mage can belong to the Eternal Kindred. They and any unit they have joined can re-roll rolls to hit of a natural 1 during the combat phase, so much like the Hound. In addition, a character belonging to the Eternal Kindred and any unit they have joined can re-roll failed rolls to wound during the combat phase while within 6 inches of a special feature. So this is a recurring theme that you'll hear more about in the Taliesin side episode, but like there's just this weird series of special rules that give you stuff when you're near a special feature. And the only like clearly this is meant to interact with like the herd stone on the beastmen side in some way, like so that those things relate. That or else the game designers expected people to use, arcane monoliths and wizards towers and whatnot far more frequently than we actually do. So that's a whole thing. But yeah, I like what this is getting at, because in a lot of things, like a special feature winds up being almost like an objective because there's extra VP tied to it and everything. Like this idea of having your eternal, because the eternal guard are the guys that stop Athelorn from being destroyed during the winter, and that if they're fighting near something important, that they get to reroll to wound. They get full wound rerolls, which is
Yeah.
wild. So like I like that as an idea, but it just interacts with a thing that's like not generally in use in the game. Partially because it's just like everyone forgets if terrain has special rules, everyone forgets them immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Thoughts on this, Andrew?
I definitely see the first part of this being used a lot. But the rerolls to wound, like, I think you're gonna have to try to manufacture situations where this comes into play. Because like Ryan said, special features aren't used very often in standard play, or people just forget, that that thing is a special feature this time. Um, but if you can get to work, like that's a really strong ability to have go off, because you're looking at elves who are mostly strength 3, maybe strength 4 on the charge with like cavalry spears and stuff, but like for the most part, they're going to be struggling to wound like anything T4, T5, plus. So just having that innate reroll is going to be like a huge boost to whatever unit that this character is going to be in, right?
Yeah, sure. If you stumble upon a special feature, agreed. Yeah, agreed. So I think if you're thinking about taking the aspect of the Hound, always take this one, because it literally has the same thing for the same amount of points, where it's like reroll hit rolls of 1 during the combat phase, but then it also gets, if you're close to a special feature, so that one game in the tournament where you're playing with the capture the tower or the hill as we played here, like great, you could use that. I think this pairs well with the Taliesin rules, which we'll cover next episode, which are all about special features. But all that being said, yeah, I don't think this one's going to see a much play, because there's some way better kindreds out there for sure.
It's also limited to infantry.
Yeah, also you're right. Where most of your damage dealers in this army, at least close combat damage dealers, are not infantry.
Yeah, there you go. That takes away my cavalry spear thing then.
Yeah, but then you can go back to the aspect of the Hound.
I mean,
For sure.
he could join the cavalry unit.
Fair. All right. Andrew, the Wild Rider kindred.
All right. 20 points. Those in command of the Wild Rider kindreds are truly embodiments of their liege lord, reckless and ferocious almost to a fault. Wood Elf nobles only. Character belonging to the Wild Rider kindred must be mounted on an elven steed or great stag, and may only wear light armor. Gross. In addition, they gain the counter charge, frenzy, fierce charge, and talismanic tattoos special rule. I kind of like it, but the limit on only light armor kind of hurts, especially if you're putting it on, one of your Glade Lords or the other dude, the captain. But you get your built-in ward save. It's only a 6 up, but if you're trying to skimp out on points on, say, like a cheap captain, that's not too bad. And seeing as Wild Riders already have frenzy, correct?
Yes, I believe they do. Yeah, I believe they do.
Bringing them up
Or
right now.
it's not impetuous. I think it is frenzy, but let's check.
It is frenzy, yes.
Yeah.
So at least they'll get the benefit of that charge as well. The extra attack, fierce charge on him. That's pretty sweet. Like, it's a good little suite of additional rules to give to sort of like a cheap captain, I guess, to throw in with your Wild Riders to give him sort of like an extra bit of punch in that unit. And it just sort of brings all his rules in line with the unit that he's joining. So you don't have to be like, this one guy doesn't get XYZ rules, but the rest of the unit does. Like, you can just roll it all together type deal. So I don't think it's the worst if you're going to be using characters in the Wild Riders. But yeah, the light armor is kind of a kick in the balls because you kind of want someone a little bit beefier in there to soak up some wounds. But yeah, not bad. 20 points. Like, why not? If you're going to be taking a lot of Wild Riders anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't hate it. It lets. I think this builds well. Like, Ryan will be taking this often because it builds well into the whole theme of Orion's Wild Hunt, and there is a tendency in that list, as we'll get further down the episode here, to really build in Frenzy, Furious Charge, Impetuous also rules into sort of those units. And you're right that, like, the first place you'd want to put this in is obviously Wild Riders, Andrew, but because you can give most of those rules, if not all of those rules, to, well, not all of them, but most of them to also Glade Riders for sure, for instance, and Warhawk Riders. Like, it sets you up well to put a captain in with one of those units also, like Glade Riders or Warhawk Riders for few points. So for 20 points. So it brings options to the table. It fits well with the narrative of the list. If you're just picking for pure competitive power, this is probably not the one you're taking, though. Ryan, what are your thoughts on the Wild Rider Kindred?
Yeah, you guys have hit most of it. Like, it gives a character all the rules Wild Riders have for 20 points, which makes sense. Yeah, but I would certainly only take it on either a character that was being purpose built to run with some Wild Riders, or some kind of like weird, cheap suicide missile dude. Although this again, this is another funny one where you take a great stag, and give the guy the crown of antlers, and just
Watch him
have
go.
him just like ram into stuff and do a bunch of impact hits.
Sure.
But as like, I'm not as fussed about the must wear light armor thing, because, like, realistically, all of these, like, unless you put your Glade Lord on a dragon, he's wearing light armor unless you go and buy like the armor of silvered steel or something. But at the same time, like, light armor, shield, and a helm of the hunt, he can get down to a 4-up save. Dang. And the stag has armored hide too.
One of the only mounts to have that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, light armor, shield. So that's 5. You can get down to a 3 just from being on the stag, and then with the helm of the hunt, you actually have a 2-up armor save on a dude in light armor.
Yes, stags are good, man. Like, don't. Yeah, they're amazing.
But that's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, though, is like,
It's not too
like,
bad, and you get a
this,
free 6-up
like,
ward. Yeah.
yeah, like this kindred on dude on stag, which is probably who it's going to be anyway. You're still getting a 3-up save with a 6-up ward, and there's another magic item that probably give you a 5-up regen that we'll talk about later.
Yep.
You can actually be pretty tanky while also having all of these extra rules.
Yep, and you're basically always going to hit first, and you hit pretty hard, so it's all good.
Exactly.
Awesome. Cool. Scout Kindred. I'll take this last one. Infantry only. A character belonging to the Scout Kindred gains quick shot and Scout's special rules. I don't hate this one, actually. For 15 points, I think there's a really fun and useful in-game way to use this on mages, where so whenever I play Wood Elves in the Grand Army, there tends to be a lot of ballistic skill shooting that doesn't necessarily have much AP. And I think if you, with the Scout Kindred, you can scout you're one of your mages to cast something like Plague of Rust, or maybe to cast like a Pillar of Fire or whatever really early in the game by being super far forward, which is interesting. Slap that guy in with a unit of Deepwood Scouts and put them where your enemy isn't expecting them, and then you can really be an annoying little piece in the back there for not too many points if you take a low level caster with like some power scrolls or whatever. Like I think it's a fun little piece of tech that you could use to do some wonky stuff with, and I'm there for that. Scout Kindred, what are your thoughts on this one, Ryan?
Again, I think it's got some cool utility options. It's pretty cheap. I definitely would see myself scouting a wizard before a lord, which means like the quick shot part's probably not going to come up a lot.
Fine.
But like, who knows? Maybe one day I'll think of something that makes that make sense. But being able to do something silly like have your wizard cast drain magic in the enemy's backfield on turn 1, is an experience.
Yeah, or just a Pillar of Fire.
Yes.
Yeah,
all of the above.
Yeah, all of the above.
Gross.
Andrew, what are your thoughts on this one? You got scouts in your army. You know how good they are.
I was not going the mage route, but now that you guys have had 2 chances to talk that up, that sounds pretty fucking sweet. Is there any units they can scout with though?
Deepwood Scouts is the first one that comes to mind for me. They're like a core unit, and they're pretty decent.
Yeah, Deepwood Scouts, Way Watchers.
Well, Way Watchers, you have to get the Way Watcher captain unlocked, don't you?
Yeah, you have to take a Way Stalker to take Way Watchers, but then they can.
That's kind
But
of
the thing is,
annoying.
the Way
Yeah.
Stalker doesn't want to be with the Way Watchers, which is funny.
Yeah, but
Weird.
like you're
Okay.
taking Deepwood Scouts basically every game, so you could take a small unit of those and slap them in.
And then just sneak in the backfield and do a bunch of shenanigans with archers in your backline plus a fucking wizard. Like that's pretty sweet. So I like that idea. And 15 points again, like all these super reasonably priced for what you're getting out of it. Just giving a character scout for 15 points, like that's good value no matter kind of what you put it on.
Yeah.
Fortunately, infantry only, but I think there's ways to make that work too. I mean, even if like they got some crazy like bows and stuff too, I think. So you can make like a weird sniper character to go with some Deepwood Scouts and just hang out in the backfield, right?
At that point, you could just take a Way Stalker.
Yeah, my way's better.
Sure.
15 points.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think realistically, like your combat characters, for sure, there's some way better kindreds, but like there's some uses you could have fun with this one. So it's good. It's good stuff. Okay, so now that we've read through all these kindreds, what are your thoughts on kindreds overall? Do you see them as being impactful, and do you think this opens up new combos or tools for the faction? Ryan, any standouts you like also?
Yeah, I like the system overall. Like it's like, I mean, I've heard the rules on rules complaint from people before, but well, now they have kindreds and they have spites, but it doesn't particularly bother me any more than like marks of chaos and mutations or gifts. Like it's just different ways of customizing your dude more. And none of these are like insanely obtrusive. Like they're cheap enough that I'll definitely use them, but they're also like even +1 strength and toughness on infantry or cavalry isn't like, oh my god, I must take this, because like there's situations where I legitimately have debates between aspect of the bear versus the wild rider kindred, for example. Or the glamour weave versus scout for your wizard. Like, what role do you want to fill with this? Like, it just gives options, and options are generally good.
Yeah, agreed. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like them. Um, for me, they harken back to sort of older editions of fantasy where there were sort of multiple layers to be able to customize your characters to exactly the role you want them to fulfill in your army. So having more stuff like this, I think, is just awesome because it makes that character that you create yours, your custom build of like exactly what you want for that character, as opposed to playing, other GW games like Age of Sigmar and 40K, where it's like you get your character, you maybe have a couple options on, what weapon they're holding, but that's kind of basically it. Like, sure, there's a few little upgrades you can buy, but like, you can't really custom build a character from the ground up like you can in like fantasy or now in old world. So I think that's really cool because it allows you to just have that character be yours.
Agreed. Yeah, I love that's one thing I've mentioned in the past, Andrew, that I like the Build-A-Bear sort of like RPG-isms of the old world, and like this absolutely feeds into it. And you're entirely correct as far as I'm tracking here. But I think Kindred's overall is a very powerful system just because it lets you add rules, make more combos. It lets you just tailor your characters a little bit more to what you need them to do. I mean, it makes your characters as customizable as like chaos characters, between items, spites, and kindreds. You've got like 3 layers of things you can play with. And I'd say that kindreds bring more to the table than like Marks of Chaos, for instance, just because there's way more options and some of them are actually really powerful. So yeah, I really, really like this system. I think the standouts for me is the aspect of the bear for sure. Like +1 strength, +1 toughness is wild. I'm there for it. I also like the aspect of the cat on like your annoying to deal with challenging dragon. And I think I'll pick the Scouts Kindred also as just a fun one to experiment and play with. So yeah, I think this is all just good stuff, and probably the most significant part of the entire book is these Kindreds. So I'm happy with it
If you
for sure.
if you
Yep.
take aspect of the cat though, you're like obligated to green stuff, anime style cat ears on your character though.
on the dragon, and it needs to be like that old metal like weird dragon there, like skinny dragon
Yeah.
GW one. Yeah, that'll be great.
The dragon also has to have cat ears, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, perfect. Let's move on to the new lore of Magic, the lore of the wilds. Technically, this new lore is attached to the host of Talsin, Army of Infamy, but you can take it across the entire, like all 3 variations of the army, because there's a 15-point very common Magic item, which we'll cover later, which gives you access to this. Lore of the Wilds. Andrew, you want to walk us through these signature spell?
Sure. So Swirling Mists, it's an enchantment, casting value 8, range of self. Until your next turn subphase, any enemy model that directs a shooting attack at the caster or any unit they have joined must reroll any rolls to hit of a natural 6. Um, yeah, it's okay, I guess. I don't think there's a lot of stuff that's super worried about ballistic skill shooting. Um, so I don't know how impactful this is going to be on the majority of games. Although now that we're seeing, at least in like our meta, a lot of these sort of poison Death Stars,
Yeah.
range shooting Death Stars, like I think this is good for our meta. I don't know like overall worldwide how it's gonna go. And really it's only a few armies that have access to that sort of gross poison shooting Death Star. But I think it's not bad. Casting value 8's like pretty decent. I think you'd probably or opt into your signature spell most of the time when you take this, at least depending on what army you're facing. So it's not a bad signature.
Agreed.
You guys think?
Yeah, agreed. I like it. Sorry, let me take that back. I think it's all right. The thing is, re-rolling only from ballistic skill shooting. Oftentimes, your Wood Elf unit is going to be, because your own ballistic skill shooting is so long range, you're going to be out of range of a lot of stuff that's shooting at you. So I think that sort of brings the value down a little bit. But I think where the value really goes down is the fact that it's only range self. If this was range like you could cast it at range, I think it'd be a lot better, because then you'd be right, Andrew. Like, you cast this on your dragon, and suddenly those poison shooting blocks are not scary at all anymore, because they got to reroll all their poison shots. However, because it's only self, I mean, there's still some value, but if you're not a large target, those blocks are not nearly as big of a deal to sort of handle. So yeah, I'm fine with it. There are worse signature spells out there. There are better ones. It's fine. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
I generally agree. Like, the only use I'm immediately seeing for this is actually on a Tree Man Ancient, in
Fair, yeah.
Talson's army, so that he can basically, protect him. Like, it's really good for him in the same way that, Nurgle is great on a dragon.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing it's super useful on. But like, the ability, like, the cool thing with it being the signature though is also in the game where it'll be of use to you.
You always have it. Yeah.
You can use it.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Fury of Athaloran. I'll take this one. Magic Missile, casting value 10, range 18. The target enemy suffers D3 plus 1, strength 6 hits with an AP of 2 and multiple wounds 2 special roll. This is a great Magic Missile. I think it's the only strength 6 Magic Missile out there. Then it has AP of 2 and it has multiple wounds 2. So it's basically... aside from, I guess it would have to be AP3, but it's basically like a mini bolt thrower. So which I love. Casting value 10 plus. I mean, it's high for a magic missile, but most of your casters are casting on at least on a 4 plus, so it's going to be fine. Range 18 is a little bit harder to use than like Fireball, for instance, but still, like, I love this. D3 plus 1, strength 6, AP2, multiple wounds 2 is a badass profile and will wreck stuff. So I'm here for the Fury of Athaloran. I think this is a fantastic spell, fantastic utility spell too. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I mean, 18 inches is the same as the summoning, which is fine.
And we still use it.
Yeah. So it's like, it's gonna hurt stuff, especially if you can get a line on like a character or a war machine that's not supported by something.
Or even like heavy cav,
killing war
elite cav.
machines.
Yeah, it is. But like elite heavy
cav
cav also. Yeah.
Yeah. Hurting dragons even. Like,
yep.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like it.
I think it hurts everything, frankly. You just don't want to shoot goblins with it. Yeah. Andrew.
Yeah, like, I think you guys really covered a lot of it. Like, casting value 10, maybe there might be a struggle there, but otherwise, like you said, everything's going to be mostly casting on a 4 plus, if not more. And yeah, just multiple wounds 2, strength 6, AP 2. Like, even if it wasn't multiple wounds, like, this would be a pretty good magic missile. The multiple wounds 2 on top of it's just like chef's kiss. And you throw this on your glamour weave guy, or no, the other one, the scout kindred guy. Now you all of a sudden have this like super crazy magic missile sitting in your opponent's backfield, picking off war machines, or characters that might have been hiding in the back lines. Even just like popping chariots before they can get to your like sort of main lines. Like, this is just a great spell.
Yep. I think we're all sold on this one. What about the next one, Ryan? Ariel's Blessing.
So this one's an enchantment. It casts on a 9. It's got a 10-inch range, and it gives the target regen 5 until the next start of turn phase. So it's like a slightly worse version of the Bretonian spell.
It's until your next start of turn, so it goes all the way around. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes for like a full
Yep.
game round. But
Yep.
the Bretonian ones remains in play.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah, you're right.
but it casts on a 7 for 6-up regen, and on a 10 it gives you a 5-up regen, whereas this just on a 9 consistently gives you a 5-up regen for a turn.
Yep.
And yeah, like this 5-up regen is great, especially on an army made of paper.
Yep.
Oh, there's no downside here.
Yeah. Loving it. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I really like this, especially once we get into the main Army of Infamy. You know, popping this on something with talismanic tattoos, like your Wild Rider. So now you got the 2 levels of saves.
Yeah.
Just being able to like dish at regen 5 at all is, super good. Passing value 9. Like, unfortunately, the range is a little low, but realistically, your wizard's going to be, if not bunkered in one of your units, like in your battle lines anyway. So I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. But yeah, just being able to give it that regen 5 is huge, especially in this army.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. Like, this is an army which is quite, I think it's the flimsiest army out there probably. So being able to slap around regen 5 is great. Like you mentioned, the range is a little bit low, but you can also always cast your own unit if you're on your own unit if you're bunkered in, which is good. And this army doesn't have a ton of ways of getting access to regen saves. There's like an item we'll cover later, but I think between the item and the spell, it's basically it. So yeah, I think it's good. I'd take it. I'd if I had access to this lore, I'd take it for sure. I think it's a good spell. Next one is Spiteful Torrent. Let's give that one to Andrew.
Yeah. So it's a magical vortex, casting value of 10 up, range of 15. This one remains in play. So you place a small 3-inch blast template so that the central hole is within 15 inches of the caster. While in play, the template is treated as dangerous terrain. The template moves d6 in a random direction during every start of turn subphase. Any enemy unit the moving template touches or moves over suffers 3d6 strength 2 hits, each with an AP of 1. Yeah, it's okay, I guess. Um, I see the main use of this, like regardless of sort of the damage effect, is just putting out like a little patch of dangerous terrain, say in front of one of your units, so that way if you're worried about a calf charge or something, like they're gonna have to take those dangerous terrain checks.
Yeah.
It's like I'd use this more defensively than maybe hoping for the offensive capabilities of this spell. I have a similar spell in the Dark Elves, the Black Vortex, or I forget the actual name of it. But it's a blast template of dangerous terrain, and I just use that. I plop it right in front of my units, and it's like, cool, you want to charge me? You got to come through this fucking dangerous terrain patch too. So I think that's what I'd be using this spell for. But compared to the sort of the first 3 we talked about, I think this one's maybe on the lower end of usefulness. What about you guys?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think probably the main use is just slapping dangerous terrain in front of stuff. I also agree with you that's probably weaker than the 2 others we covered before. Yeah, I think, Ryan, is this the only spell where you also get damage if you like your enemy walks onto it rather than having the spell move onto them? You know what I mean, Ryan? Where like not
So
is it, yeah, go ahead.
This one doesn't damage it
So
when
it
they
it, it
move
it
on it.
it doesn't actually say that. Like I've heard multiple people read it that way, but
Okay.
what it says is any enemy unit the moving template touches or moves over.
Oh,
So
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the subject of that sentence is still the template.
Fair. Okay.
yeah.
Fair. You're right.
It's
So you
just, yeah,
can
it's
walk on it
weirdly
without the other
specific because,
effects, but you get
yeah,
dangerous terrain.
because in order to move over you have to touch, so it's kind
Yeah.
of unnecessary to have written it that way. But
Yeah, I just zoomed in on it because it's written differently than all the other ones. But yeah, I think now that I reread it, you are in fact correct. But yeah, still dangerous terrain is just useful. The damage I think in this case is like ancillary to that.
Exactly. Like
yeah.
it's like is it Vortex of Chaos or the Elemental or the Elementalism one? But like it's like they're very similar. Where like you don't throw it out for the damage, you just throw it out for dangerous terrain annoyance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I forget, but yes, you're right. Anything else on this one, Ryan?
No.
All right, let's go to the next one, which is another bit of a banger. Durthu's Wrath, an assailant spell, casting value 10 plus. Each model in the fighting rank of a unit that the caster is engaged with must immediately make an initiative test. Each model that fails this test suffers D3 strength 4 hits with no armor saves permitted. Ward and regen saves can be attempted as normal. This is very interesting and kind of situational, but when you do get like the right situation, it will absolutely mow down a lot of models. So I think this is our first spell that really sort of works in this way. Taking an initiative test means that like it's better into some armies than others. For instance, like if you're playing into dwarves, if you're playing into undead, chaos dwarves, like when you have initiative 2, you're failing most of those initiative tests. And then my read of this is like this doesn't spill over, so each model is then taking D3 strength 4 hits. So every model that fails the test basically. So you could do a lot of damage with this. No armor saves permitted, and then it punishes people if you've got an opponent. You're playing a dwarf opponent that has like 20 rangers laid out in a line or what have you. You could really do damage with this. You'd have to think of how you're employing your caster to be able to use this as well as possible. But I think in a unit of Wild Riders or maybe even Sisters of the Thorn, I think this is something you can do. You can use for sure.
3-man ancient.
A 3-man ancient, yeah, another good example. I see how you're going to build your army, Ryan. But yeah, I think that's another good option for sure. What are your thoughts on this one, Ryan?
I mean, first off, there are no tree men in the wild hunt. But anyway.
Oh yeah, fair. It's Taliesin. My bad. Yeah.
But yes, like this spell screams like Branchwraith or Tree Man Ancient at me. Because that's a thing that's going to get into combat and then do that. And it's going to be really funny when you have the opponent that's like, I make the widest line possible with my Doom Guard or something.
Yeah.
And then they all take...
You fake them. Thank you.
Yeah. You're like, this is a sweet 20-man line. They all die.
Yeah.
It's just horrifying.
Yeah. Initiative tests when you don't have the right army are brutal. Yeah. Speaking as someone, what are your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I think this is really good. Also considering just like the innate. I'm just gonna bring up the Spellweaver. What? They're only initiative 4? Brutal. Elven reflexes, so they'll be initiative 5. Like they already have an innate high-ish initiative. So chances are, even if you're getting charged by, say, like dwarves or I don't know, ogres, you might be able to cast this before them anyway. And just being able to rip off like a bunch of wounds or models off that fighting rank before they even swing against you. Again, very defensive. But yeah, not a bad spell. Like D3 strike 4 hits with no armor saves. Like Cav are just gonna, think twice about charging in against units with this guy, or try to kill them or kill that model first before the spell gets off, because they're gonna have a bad day otherwise if this goes off.
Agreed. Again, also now that you're speaking about Cav, like I hadn't thought of the defensive implications of this, Andrew, but you're entirely correct. Again, also very punishing to Bretonnian lances, where everybody counts as being in the fighting rank.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
Where they're T3 and with high armor saves, like that's a bit of a rough one for them for sure. Okay, next one, hidden pathways, Ryan.
Yes, so this is a conveyance. Casts on an 8. It's got a range of 12. Until the start of your next start of turn subphase, target friendly unit gains the reserve move rule and may perform a quick turn even if it would not normally be able to do so. That last caveat, I'm not 100% sure if it means you can perform a quick turn even if you're not in open order formation. It might mean that.
Yeah, that's how I read it.
Yeah. Well, like, yeah, it's just, it could also just be if you don't normally, if you aren't normally fast cavalry.
Mhm.
But anyway, it's immaterial. The quick, like, reserve move and quick turn, being able to throw that on some wild riders or something that doesn't already have reserve move, and then just having that ability to um, you know gain some extra maneuver and repositioning around the table. Like, it's not a spell I'd go out of my way to get, but I'm gonna use it if I have it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's not bad. I always like extra movement. Reserve move is good. Like, I know there are some units in this army that can march and shoot, but regardless, like in a shooting army, reserve move is always good. And then if you can slap a quick turn at the end, then amazing. Like, it's good. It's fine. Andrew, any thoughts on hidden pathways?
No strong
Yeah,
opinions one way or another. Like, it's cool,
you're
I
not
guess.
picking this one, yeah.
Yeah, like if you get it, like fine. I'm sure you can find ways to make it work, but it's not like, again, it's not as good as some of the other ones we've spoken about, which are kind of like more must takes if you
Yeah.
take the lore familiar or whatever. Yeah, it's not bad, I guess. Cast on an 8 range 12, like it's decent, I guess.
Yeah. Speaking of an interesting one, Andrew, Sapping Blight.
Yes. This is a hex with a value of 9, casting value of 9, range of 12. Until your next start of turn subphase, the target enemy unit suffers a minus D3 modifier to its strength characteristic to a minimum of 1. This spell may target an enemy unit engaged in combat. If the spell is cast, the effects of any other hex previously cast on the target unit immediately expire. Yikes, this is super fucking good. And only casts on a 9. So again, Wood elves are very squishy. This is going to help make them less squishy. And it's going to hurt a lot of anything you basically cast this on. It's going to remove any of their combat effectiveness, regardless of the strength of it. Like, even if you're looking at like a strength 6 fucking dragon, like all of a sudden strength 3 dragon, like that's a joke. It's nothing. So like this is very strong. It's also going to neuter like cav units for sure. You know, if you get the full -3, it is a roll. But even like -1 strength is usually pretty devastating to most things. So yeah,
Yep.
this is a super good spell. I think you're gonna want to have this in your tool bag of spells every time.
100
What about you guys?
100% agreed. Yeah. Yeah, I really, really like this spell actually. I think what's pretty key here is that it could be cast into combat. Sure, the range
Yeah,
is
that's
not
huge.
that far, but like if you've got, we mentioned earlier that Wood Elves have a really annoying challenge dragon, which carries this faction, I think quite a bit. And then you can, if it's in combat with like, you match up into a list that's also sort of hinging on one big combat piece, and they match up in combat and they're locked in a challenge, and then you slap it with a minus D3 to its strength or whatever. Like that is yeah, that is rough. It has a lot of good uses. And then, as you mentioned, Andrew, if you think you're about to get charged by some peg knights or whatever other hard-hitting unit, and suddenly you slap it with minus D3 strength, like it just reduces the output significantly. So yeah, I think this is really good. It's really good. I mean, Word of Pain is like only -1 to strength, and we already think that's a great spell. I guess, you're usually taking it for the -1 toughness if you are there, but like this one's minus D3. So no, it's excellent. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
All right, it's just great. There's no, like, you guys have covered it all.
Yeah, like with a lore familiar, I'm taking this one for sure. Okay, overall thoughts on the new lore. Do you see it as being impactful? Do you think people will bring it to the game, or they're sticking to the other lores? Like, any standouts for you, Ryan? What are your thoughts?
I really like it. I think it's like both. I think it's strong, but like, because of the limited access to it, like, it's strong, but it's also not going to be everywhere. And it's definitely very, like, it definitely fits with where it's supposed to be. Like, it's very Talcin tree kind of army, benefits from this a lot, but there's utility in every single one of these spells that will benefit any sort of Wood Elf army.
Yeah, for sure. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I think most Wood Elf lists, unless you want something specific, say out of like the illusion spell list, or I think it's battle is the other one that's mostly taken.
Yeah,
I think
elementalism, battle, and illusion. I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, so unless you specifically want something out of those specific lists, I think a lot of Wood Elves are just going to default to this because there's sort of utility in everything. You got a bit of movement, you got a really good damage spell. You got some really good defensive stuff, which are going to keep your units alive if you make like a misplay or something and you put yourself in a bad spot. Like, this will have a few outs for you in that regard. So I think, yeah, this is a really strong list. I think it's really good. I will say I'm a little disappointed in the list, not in the overall terms of like how good this list is, but in sort of like the hype leading up to Wood Elves, it talked about how like, oh, it's like very Wood Elf centric and I was expecting maybe a little bit more interplay with like the forest you get to bring, or like woods in general on the map, like maybe bonuses to that, or some sort of interplay with like the terrain in that regard. So I'm kind of disappointed that aspect isn't there, but I guess realistically, like, this is a better spell lore competitive wise than sort of what I was hoping for. So in that regard, I think, like, yeah, this is an awesome list.
Yeah, I agree. I really like this lore actually. I think this is a lore I'd pick for sure. I think this is also a lore I would consider taking the lore familiar for. I mean, tree singing is good, but I think with the lore familiar, you have 4 real bangers between like the Fury of Athaloran, which is like that sick magic missile, strength 6 magic missile that we talked about. Ariel's Blessing, which is the 5+ regen. Dirthu's Wrath, which is like the initiative assailment spell, and then Sapping Blight to reduce strength. So, I mean, all of those, I think you like. It leads me sort of to think of a caster and a cavalry bunker build. You just sort of write in, reduce the strength of your enemy, slap a 5+ regen on yourself, and then just go ham with Dirthu's Wrath on that unit when you do charge them. Like, there's sort of that build that I'd be leaning towards, but I think this is a really good lore. It's better than a lot of them out there. Is it better than like illusion, elementalism and battle magic that we sort of see as being some of the main lores? Probably, maybe not. I don't know, but I it's up there. It's a really good lore though.
I think it's at least on par with them.
Yeah, I think it's
maybe
on
a little
par.
bit better for this specific army.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with you. I think it'll see play. It's a good lore. Okay, good. Let's move on to Orion's Wild Hunt. So let's kick off first with some general thoughts on the Army of Infamy. Is it thematic and fun? Does it bring something that Wood Elves needed to the table? Does it open up new play styles for the army? Like, what are you thinking? Starting with Andrew.
First off, can we just call it Riot's Wild Hunt? Because
Yeah,
he's the one who's
yeah,
going to be kicking
exactly.
this anyways.
Yeah. Ryan's Wild Hunt. I'm there for it.
All right. I think it's very thematic. Like, I think this is a list a lot of people wanted to run, at least back in 8th ed, when the new plastic Wild Rider, or new back then Wild Riders, came out in plastic. You know, those were a huge hit for players of the Wood Elves, and just in general, like, those are super nice kits. Um, and you know, being able to field an army themed around just the Wild Hunt in general, like, that's a very evocative part of the Wood Elf lore that kind of makes them unique from sort of other Wood Elves in other fantasy genres. Um, so being able to feel that in like Old World, like, I think that's awesome. I personally like this list. Maybe it's not the most competitive, but I think you still might see people play it just because it is going to be like super fun to play, and there's some cool things in here that you can do. Um, Power level wise, though, I do think it's probably going to struggle against sort of like those, you know, high toughness, high armor, like cav armies and, you know, dragons in general. I think it's going to struggle a bit against that stuff. But I also don't put it past the player base to figure out ways to make this work on the table. You know, higher level of skill sets than me or brain power than me to like make these types of things work. Like, I think someone's gonna figure it out. So yeah, I do like the list in general, and I think it fits the team like to a T. Like, I think it's really good.
Awesome, Ryan. I know you're pretty sold on this. Give me the sales pitch.
So, like, all things considered, you don't have to take infantry if you don't want to.
Yep.
That's all I needed from this. It was just, it's full send, fast, violent cavalry, um, which is the tradition I can get behind. Anyone knows my username from everything. Um, it's fine. But anyway, no, it brings, like, yes, it's very narrow in scope, like a lot of the all cavalry armies, and there's going to be a lot of frenzy. There's going to be a lot of, kind of uncontrollable, almost borderline uncontrollableness to it. It's going to hit like a truck full of bricks and then probably die immediately. But I don't know. It has an appeal to me. But I'm also just the guy who takes triangles of cavalry and shoves them at people. So I, that's it. I think it nails the theme of what it's supposed to be very well, especially when combined with things like the kindreds and various magic items and whatnot. Um, but yeah, will it in any way make a dent in the overall competitive game? Probably not. Um, if you sneeze in this army's general direction, it just dies. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned it in my opening comments. I'm a little bit disappointed in this Army of Infamy. I think it's a really evocative concept, like the whole Wild Hunt, where Orion, or Ryan in our case, whips up like all these all these wood elves into like a massive frenzy, and then just goes like on a drunken binge wherever, and charges and kills whatever they could find. Like, this is really cool and interesting. I just wish that the studio had taken it a few steps further. Give us more units. Give us. I think there's like, feel like there's a rule missing here, or something to just really sell it for me. I mean, I appreciate that the changed composition list like lets you not take infantry and just sort of double down on that concept. Like, okay, cool. But I mean, for instance, mortuary cults can have riderless snakes. Why can't this have riderless warhawks and units, and unicorns without riders? Like, just all the beasts of the forest, charging off into the distance. Like, I think I wish they would have taken it a little bit further to really sell me on it. I think like how this is going to play as like the glassiest of all glass hammers. Like some things in here will hit pretty hard when they do come home, but it's going to be uncontrollable and it's going to be charging in all kinds of random directions. So it'll be fun, but your opponent can definitely take advantage of it. Like to know how good this is though, like full disclosure, I still need to run the numbers on all the extra attacks you could get between like Frenzy and Furious Charge, like the liberal application of Frenzy and Furious Charge, to see sort of how high you can take this. But I mean, overall, this is the same idea as like something like Wolves of the Sea, where it's just a bunch of fast, glass hammery type units coming in. So and I think that has play. So that this probably has play. I think competitively though, it's just going to have some really bad matchups because you're doubling down on like on what is you're doubling down on the very glassy nature of like very flimsy nature of wood elves, which is dangerous into a lot of opponents. But when you hit the right matchup where there's not a lot of ballistic skill shooting and where your opponent's not a very high toughness army, like this will cause problems for them for sure. So those are my thoughts on it. Okay, Ryan, why don't you take us through the army composition list in the comments?
Absolutely. So it is 1 second. Okay, so the army can be up to 50. Your characters up to 50% can be 0 to 1 Glade Lord per 1,000 points, 0 to 1 Shadow Dancer, Spell Singer, or Waystalker per 1,000 points, and as many Glade Captains as you can afford. Your core, at least 25%, must be spent on Glade Riders, or 0 to 1 unit of Wild Riders per 1,000 points. In special, up to 50% of your army can be spent on 0 to 1 units of Sisters of the Thorn per 1,000 points, and any amount of War Dancers, Warhawk Riders, Wild Riders, and Wood Elf Beast Packs. Rare, up to 25% of your army can be spent on 0 to 1 unit of Way Watchers per Way Stalker, 0 to 3 Great Eagles per 1,000 points, and any number of Deepwood Scouts and Wildwood Rangers, and your BSB can be a Glade Captain. So that's what all of that is. As to that, like as I've said repeatedly, like all the things make sense where they are. You could take Wild Riders as core. You could take Glade Riders as core. You can have your Lord. You can have your Lord on a dragon. It doesn't have to be on a horse. Also, should be noted, you could take Orion. It doesn't specifically say Orion, but his rules say you can take him anywhere, so it's fine. You are limited to only level 2 wizards, which is always not the greatest, but it's fine. Just charge people. Like it has all of the cavalry things and some kind of scouting. The Wildwood Rangers, I don't wholly understand how they fit into the army. They're just kind of
they're going to be left behind fast.
like they're just sprinting up the field. But I guess they're like, again, their whole shtick is like they're like
Monster
the
slayers.
questing knights of Wood Elves.
Yeah.
Like, sure, I guess. You could also just have like 6 Great Eagles for some reason.
Amazing.
Yeah, just like aerial cavalry of so bad.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean the army composition, its list is fine. Like it dials you into that theme really well through limitation essentially. The no level 4 is always a rough one. I think this I get it may be like a lore thing, where Orion versus Ariel, but regardless, from a competitive standpoint, no level 4 is always like a hard pill to swallow. As Ryan mentioned, you can still take that Dragon Lord if you want, so choose. Great. Stag Lords are also completely fine in this army, and just a funny title in general. But yeah, no, this is I like it. I think Deepwood Scouts probably still have a play, like if you want to be as competitive as possible, a little bit less themey, but I think they still have play. Other than that, like this will be a fun army of just like all kinds of birds and all kinds of crazy frenzied cavalry. So yeah, like it's fun. I like it. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you guys covered most of it. Like the main takeaway I see is like no level 4 access really stings. Um but like this is for sure like the de facto Wood Elf Cavalist, minus a few outliers there. But you can still get like, your Dragon Lord in there. You have, Orion fits perfectly into this list. Um, the Deepwood, or sorry, the Rangers, the Wilder Rangers are, like you guys highlighted, kind of weird because they're, this army wants to go fast. It wants to get stuck in as quickly as possible. Um, and Wilder Rangers just don't have the speed to keep up with, the rest of your core and special options, all the flying eagles and stuff. So like it's weird to see them there because they're not going to mesh well with the rest of the army. Um, they don't even have like scout or something to get them where you want them to be. So yeah, I don't know. I like it though. It's everything you would expect from a wild hunt army.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think you're
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I
wanting
think
much
I'll
more.
agree. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right, Andrew. And also, like I didn't point it out, but you don't have any penalties on core. Like you don't need to take 33% or what have you. So that's also good news.
Yeah.
And it does kind of open, like you don't really see oops all cav wood elf lists. I don't know if that's because they're not amazing or because like they're just army composition doesn't really allow it. It's probably both, frankly. But like this allows you to take that kind of army. So it is opening up a new list archetype for the faction, which is good. Yeah. Okay. Let's move. Let's move on to the rules. There's three different special rules on this one. So I'll take the first one here. Chieftains of the Wild Hunt. So Wood Elf nobles in Orion's Wild Hunt army may have the Talismanic Tattoos special rule at the cost of 10 points per model. Great. Fine. I mean, for 10 points, you could slap a 6-up ward save on most of your or all of your combat characters. So, okay, cool. I don't have too much to say about this rule. It's a 6-up ward save for 10 points. Great. Let's move it on to Andrew next. For what are
So
your
this
thoughts on this one? Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I mean, yeah, it's decent. Like, if you've used up all your sort of magic item ward save allotments on other characters, but you still want to, give some sort of defensive capabilities to others, 10 points is nothing. So, 6-up ward save for 10 points, like I think that's a fair buy. And, if you have leftover characters who need that, give it to them. Why not? So I think it's not bad.
Yeah.
Again, fits in with the theme. Like you can paint up your characters really cool with like tattoos and stuff on them, so you can
Yeah. And I
fit
mean,
that
you're
into the
right.
overall look of the army.
Yeah, and you're right, Andrew, with the points. I mean, 10 points for a 6-up save is like the going rate on the enchanted shield. So, yeah. So
Yeah.
that makes sense. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this rule?
No, I totally agree. Like it's there, and honestly, wood elves don't have a whole heck of a lot of access to ward saves. Like you got your talisman of protection, and you've got the armor that gives you a 4-up ward, but only if you're within 6 inches of trees,
Sweet.
and that's it. So being able to slap a 6-up ward on like any noble is not the worst thing. Like it's pretty handy in the grand scheme of options.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. nobody will shit on having a 6-up ward save for 10 points. That doesn't count against your magical items. So
Exactly.
okay, awesome. Andrew, the Spirit of Kurnos.
So 0 to 1 units of Glade Riders, Warhawk Riders, or Wood Elf Beast Packs per 1,000 points may have Furious Charge and Impetuous special rules at the cost of 10 points per unit. Note this does not apply to the model's mount, should it have one. So not... I mean, 10 points per unit, like, depending on the size of the unit, that could be a point a model. If you got, like, a sort of a 10-man block of Glade Riders. I think you're going to want to take this, even with the sort of Impetuous tax tacked onto this. I mean, the army is already going to be pretty uncontrollable with all the frenzy that's going to be kicking around with the Wild Riders. But being able to give that little bit of extra combat output with the Furious Charge on all these sort of fast cav units, I think you're going to want to take this anyway, just to meek out as much strength 3 damage as you can get from this army, because you're going to need basically every attack you can get. So I think it's cool, and again, thematic. It fits into that sort of like, they're all just drunk and riding through the forest, killing everything they find type vibe. So, I think it fits. It's kind of unfortunate it doesn't apply to the mount. Like, I know that's sort of standard across all these types of rules when applying it to like cav models, but like you'd think, at least for the Wood Elves, their mounts would also be kind of caught up in this sort of vibe that the whole wild hunt is, like enraging and everything. Like, it seems like it's more of like a magical effect on everyone in the forest as opposed to like just the characters just like the elves themselves riding these things. So you'd think like the mounts too would sort of get caught up in this feeling. But whatever, it is what it is. 10 points, like, pretty fucking cheap, especially considering it's not per model, it's per unit. So that's huge.
Yeah, agreed, Ryan.
Yeah, like I like it. I I feel like maybe 0 to 1 per 1,000 is a little bit restrictive, but when you start doing the math, you're probably not going to have enough of those things for it to matter. But yeah, like, it lets your Glade Riders, or I guess your Warhawks or Beasts, feel more part of the whole activity.
Yes.
And it also
Rampage.
like,
Yeah.
but like at the same time, like you look at Glade Riders and I'm like, why does this unit have drilled as an option? Like, when would I ever use this?
Yeah.
10 Glade Riders with Furious Charge might actually use drilled instead of just being skirmishers with reserve move.
Fair.
So that's it. It's a cool option.
Yeah, I mean, it's thematic. I'll say that. I mean, why does it not apply to mounts? I'm fully on board with Andrew on this one. I mean, it wouldn't break this Army of Infamy if your horses were getting an extra attack on the charge, but hey, it is what it is. By my read, it doesn't apply to the beasts though, so the beasts would still get an extra attack. Which, if you're gonna take beasts, they probably need the extra attack. So make sure you slap this rule on them. It can maybe, I might reconsider some of the beasts like the boar, which we'll get to later there, if they get an extra attack for sure. So there is that. I think it really obviously ups the offensive output massively on units that are when you double their number of attacks, because that's how math works. So if you're going to take this Army of Infamy, I think you're for sure diving into this and slapping it on some units. So yeah, I like it. It's thematic and everybody likes extra attacks. Cool. Worthy of Kurnos. I'll take this one. So after deployment, but before the first turn begins, nominate a single enemy character or a single enemy model whose troop type is monster. This model has been marked by the Wild Hunt as a prized trophy. All models within a friendly Ryan's Wild Hunt army may reroll any rolls to hit of a natural 1 made in shooting or combat against the nominated unit. Additionally, you win 100 victory, a bonus of 100 victory points if the nominated model is slain, has fled the battlefield, or is fleeing at the end of the game. This is cool. This is thematic. I like it. Nobody will be unhappy at the chance to get 100 victory points for freebies. I mean, you can put this on a monstrous creature that's pretty easy to kill, and just get a free or a little bit of an extra victory points boost from it. So that's nice. And then having your whole army reroll natural hit rolls of 1 in both shooting and combat is good. I know there's not a ton of shooting in this army, but like it'll help your Deepwood Scouts, for instance. So yeah, I think this is a good rule. It's free, it's thematic, and it gives you a tight little bonus there. So I like it. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
I agree. Like it keeps you, oriented on go kill big thing or cool character. Just the Hierophant for the undead. Just that guy. Fuck that guy. And I get 100 points for killing him.
Or like a Tomb Scorpion, which is pretty easy to kill and is a monstrous creature.
Yeah, no, like if you're just fishing for the 100 points, yeah, you throw it on like a giant or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, someone slaps down their high based on a dragon.
Yeah.
Re-rolling ones to shoot or fight against him isn't hurting, and then when you kill him, you get 100 points for killing the general and 100 points for killing him, plus what he cost, and the army starts to crumble. Like there's options.
Yeah. Andrew, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I like it. I like a lot of these sort of rules that they're introducing that give armies an additional way to score X amount of extra victory points. I wish we saw more of it, especially if it played in sort of the theme or, strengths of that army to give them a little bit of a way to win or at least do better in a game outside of like the straight up like, hey, I kill you or I kill this unit and I get points for that. So I like this rule just because of that. And then, I think it's a fairly easy one to pick if you pick something, like you said, like a Tomb Scorpion or something that's, very easy to kill. Unless your opponent is trying to actively keep that unit safe. But at that point, that's almost just as good because then they're not participating as much in the battle. But yeah, I really the for me the big part of this is that sort of second part of the rule where it's just here's another way you can earn X amount of victory points. Like I really like those types of rules when they're introduced, especially like the dwarf one too comes to mind. Like that's I really like that as well with the with the Doom Seekers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like having that alternate way to win in the game or at least edge that victory. I think it's cool and it's a cool design space.
Yep, and I like that it's like if we're gonna have sort of secondary objectives, this is the right way to do it. Like it's thematic, it builds
100%.
to the army's strengths. It's not like go sit in this place and collect points. Like it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, perfect. So those are the rules. Like overall, looking at these 3 rules, how impactful do you think they are, Andrew? And like, does it sell the army for you, like from a thematic piece? Like, is it going to have an impact competitively or just flavor or whatever?
I think it sort of hits at like a middle ground. We sort of all sort of clocked in on the first one where you get, your talismanic tattoos for 10 points. Like I think that's good in a competitive sense because again, a 10.6 up ward is, decent. And then for theme wise, like being able to give, a couple of your units per 1,000 points, Furious Charge and Impetuous, like that kind of fits into the theme of, these guys are going on a crazy rampage through the forest, so giving them that Furious Charge, that's going to help with the damage output. And again, like the last part we just talked about. Like, I think, having that the Wild Hunt rock up on an enemy warband and be like, oh, like that's the guy we gotta kill. And then, theme wise, like that fits in, but then also, you score a little bit of extra points for that as well. I think that fits into the theme. So, like, rules wise, I think this fits into the theme of the army fairly well. And again, I don't think this list is super competitive, but on a competitive side of things, I think this does help in that regard as well. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, Ryan.
I think all these things just add a little bit of flavor, but I will say, like, unlike a lot of the other Armies of Infamy, it's not really adding anything, like, aside from the, like, extra scoring potential. It's really adding a lot, like, mechanically to the army that, like, but I think the unit selection of the army is already what's making it play differently from other Wood Elf things. But so, being able to take talismanic tattoos on theme, being able to have furiously charging, Glade Riders also on theme, hunting big monster on theme, all just reinforces the theme for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think overall these add flavor, definitely, and they sort of sell the narrative of the army here. I wish there was a little bit more to them. I think, like, I would describe all three of these like they're all base hits. Like, to take a baseball analogy, they're all base hits. There's no home runs here. There's no doubles or triples. Like, it's all just, they'll all sort of come into play into your all your matches, but none of them are like amazing or really standout special rules. There's no will increase your casting rolls like they do in Mortuary Cults type of rule here, right? So there's nothing too massive, but like they're all useful. The 6-up ward for when you run out of magic items is good. Doubling attacks on support units essentially is good. You can maybe make them as like little secondary sort of hammer units with that, fine. And then 100 extra VP, like, I'll take it every game, and rerolling ones against that target is also useful. So, I mean, like, they're all just safe bets that will see some value in all your games, but nothing really earth-shattering or on its own that really tells me that this army is going to shake up the competitive meta. So, yeah. Okay, let's do our 2 units here. I think, Ryan, you've got the first one here. Your man, Orion.
Yes, Orion, King of the Woods, and his 2 trusty hounds
Sheepdog.
that might be literal sheep. So they are. So first off, it is a single unit consisting of 3 models, one of which is monstrous infantry, and 2 of which are war beasts. So that's a whole thing. It's 455 points, and they are movement 9. Orion is weapon skill 8, ballistic skill 6, strength 5, toughness 5, 5 wounds, initiative 8, 5 attacks, leadership 10. And his dogs are weapon skill 4, strength toughness 4. They have 1 wound. Their initiative 4, 1 attack, and leadership 6. Orion's equipped with the Cloak of Isha, the Hawk's Talon, the Horn of the Wild Hunt, and the Spear of Kurnus. And his hounds have claws and fangs. Key special rules: Fear, Frenzy, Immune to Psych, Move Through Cover, Magic Resistance 2, Open Order. He's got Stomp Attacks D3+2, and Strikes First, and Terror, and Unbreakable. The dogs have most of those things, but also have magical attacks, and the Spectral Hounds rule. So there's a little note here that Orion and his hounds are a single unit, which Orion cannot leave, and should they be reduced to a single model, it remains in open order formation. which I guess is to say that no matter how they all die, like you're still wheeling that last individual model.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
even if it's just Orion, whose unit type is named character. And then Spectral Hounds. Hounds of Orion can only be wounded by magical attacks. So they're ethereal, but not ethereal in a way that prevents them from being in a unit with a non-ethereal model. Okay, sure. The Cloak of Isha. The Cloak of Isha gives Orion a 5-up ward save. In addition, during the start of turn subphase, on a roll a d6, on a 5-up, he regains a wound lost earlier in battle. A single wound. The Horn of the Wild Hunt. Once per game during the command subphase of the turn, Orion can sound the Horn of the Wild Hunt. If he does, until the end of this turn, friendly units in his command range gain the Frenzy special rule. A unit may become frenzied in this way, even if it lost Frenzy earlier in the game. So that's kind of neat. The Hawk's Talon is his bow, 30-inch range, strength user, AP -1, magical attacks, multiple shots, D3 +1. And the Spear of Kurnos has 2 profiles, ranged, 18-inch, strength +1, AP -2, magical attacks, multiple wounds, D3, but also has the through and through rule like a bolt thrower, which is just amazing. And in combat, it's strength +1, AP -2, magical attacks, multiple wounds, D3. So all of that is pretty cool. I really, really want to like and purchased. I purchased Orion yesterday knowing this. I really want to like this. I'm still at a loss on exactly how to. Like, you'll have to screen him with stuff, otherwise he's just gonna get like shot in the face and die.
Yeah.
Because 5 wounds at toughness 5 with only a 5-up ward save is not peak durability. Understanding
Oh, it's
like
fine. He heals himself. It works out. It works out.
Sure.
yes, he has to be alive for that to
No,
happen.
he'll be fine. He'll be fine.
Though I guess there is also a bit of like you have to distribute the hits to all 3 models in the unit if he's getting shot at, which is interesting. Anyway, he does stuff. He's also fast, so like I'm sure him just getting into combat and hurting things is going to be real. Throwing his bolt thrower spear at stuff. Like he's got a lot of things. And like I kind of like this like Horn of the Wild Hunt, like the mid-game rally where you can re-frenzy units that lost combat earlier and launch into things. Like he definitely screams Orion, like from like a rules kind of perspective. I just 455 points for something that I feel is going to die if you look at it weird is a bit scary to me.
Yep. Yep. And that's exactly where I was going to begin my commentary. Ryan is saying like 455 points for this guy feels pricey. I think I would still consider him pricey at 300. So yeah. I mean, at 455, he locks you out essentially of taking a dragon character, which is one of the big sort of pieces that carries this army. So that is rough. I think also like like as you mentioned, Ryan, a 5-up ward save on a 5 wound T5 unit is rough. You know, act the 2 dogs there, but still, like I mean, even with regenning the wounds, I think there's an actual mathematical risk of a single Iron Demon machine gunning Orion and his two hounds in like a single round of shooting, and that Iron Demon is like half, like 50% less points than this guy is. So yeah, I'm extremely concerned about his durability. I think for me the biggest selling point on this guy is actually his the horn ability. I hadn't even thought of refrenzying at first, Ryan, but the way I was sort of envisioning this is your army's all like exceptionally fast, and start of turn 2 or 3 when you're all lined up to charge, you blow the horn, and then for your units that are not already frenzied, like your wild riders, for instance, all your other units are getting extra attacks. And then if you gave them, using the rule, the Spirit of Kurnos, you gave them furious charge, then you're looking at triple attacks, and that's starting to be some pretty significant output even on like crummy little strength 3 elves. So yeah, I like that rule for sure, but it's a big investment for that to happen, and a lot of things have to go right to be able to leverage it. But when you do, it'll be good, and it'll feel good on the tabletop. Aside from that, he is fast, but he doesn't have swift stride though, which means he's probably still going to fall a little bit behind from the rest of your army, which I think basically all have swift stride except for the two infantry units in rare. But yeah, that's my take on him. I think that because of the points, unfortunately, you're not going to see much of this guy unless you're taking the wild hunt and you really want to bring, and like as a result, you really want to bring Orion. But yeah, certainly you won't see him in any other army of it, like the Grand Army or the other Army of Infamy, as far as I can guess. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for the most part, like agree. I think he's maybe like even 50 to 75 points too expensive. Like I know you guys said 300 is even too much, but I think there's some workable things in here. He's strength 6 in close combat, AP2, multiple wounds, D3. Like that's pretty gross, especially with his high weapon skill and always strikes first. Like you definitely want to kill this guy at ranged unless you're super confident in your defensive capabilities in close combat. But like he's in close combat, he's gonna delete a lot of what he touches. But yeah, just keeping him alive is gonna be the trick. I joke, if recovering that one wound is awesome, but realistically, it's not that great, especially on just a 5-up ward. And even his toughness isn't really carrying him through a lot of those attacks. Like toughness 5 is good, don't get me wrong, but on a point or on a model like this with such high points and such sort of importance to the overall army, because he'll most likely be your general, that's just kind of not good enough. Like maybe if he's T6, that might be a little bit better, but even then, like he should have at least some sort of armor save at the very least, if not some regen as well. Even if you just word it as like, his skin's tougher because he's basically a demigod, and give him an armor save, I think that would have helped a lot. But yeah, it's going to be rough. And then also just keeping him controlled, although that's kind of like an overall
That's the
detriment
theme
to this whole. Yeah, that's the theme of this list, is just like you're not going to control anyone, and even the stuff that you have that you might be able to sort of block your frenzies and your impetuouses, there's not enough of it to cover everybody, so even this guy's just going in. So yeah, like I do think he's okay-ish. I don't think he's as bad as you guys say, but I think he is going to suffer against range attacks and stuff like that.
Yeah, like just as a points comparison, Andrew, there, like I said 300, but like for as a comparison, a Black Orc War Boss on Wyvern for 340 points, fully decked out, in close combat with a 3+, 5+, 5+, has more wounds, more toughness, striking at strength 7 with a great weapon. He's faster with Swiss Ride and Fly. Like, I think this guy's vastly overpriced. Like, he's not terrible. Bring him down to, I don't know, 250 and I'll start taking him, but not for those points for sure.
Sure.
All right. Okay, so we got one more unit to do here, and then Ryan unfortunately has had to leave us because of some other commitments. So we'll do the last unit and we'll save the magic items for next episode. I will. Yeah, I could take this one. Fine. So the Beastkeeper, and the Beast packs. I was really looking forward to this unit, actually, because I like the idea of, a bunch of panthers roaming around the board and doing some crazy stuff with those kinds of models. But I'm a little bit disappointed in this unit also. So what you get for so the way that this unit is built is you take a number of Beastkeepers, and each Beastkeeper must take, one of hounds, cats, boars, or the bear. Like you have a 1 to 3 in most cases, except the bear. And basically, you sort of build your unit like that. Each sort of unit within the beast pack must take the same. So you can only have units of like hounds, cats, boars, or bears. Like you can have a mix of animals. They need to be like a single type. Okay, so the Beastkeeper has basic elven stats of like weapon, ballistic skill 4, 3s for strength and toughness, initiative 4, 1 attack, leadership 8. He comes in at 11 points. Only got a hand weapon and light armor, and then he gets to pick, as I mentioned earlier, for 8 points each, 1 to 3 additional hounds, for 6 points each, cats, for 1 to 3 of those, 1 to 3 boars for 11 points each, and 1 bear for 20 points. They have, of course, elven reflexes, motley crew, because they're a bunch of different animals with the handlers, move through cover, run with the pack, which is a nifty little rule that makes it so that, even though the Beastkeeper is only movement 5, he can always move at the speed of the unit, at the speed of the beast, essentially, in his unit. Also, they're not subject to the undisciplined rule and war beasts when they, as part of this unit. Let's look at the beasts, because this is why you're actually taking them. So the hounds are very fast. They're movement 9, weapon skill 4, but they're only strength toughness 3 with a single attack. Leadership 5. They come in at 8 points. The cats are movement 7. Again, weapon skill 4, strength and toughness 3 with a single attack, but they're only 6 points. The boars are strength and toughness 4 with a single attack, only movement 6. The Bear of Lauren is a bit beefier with weapons. It's the slowest, though, at movement 5 with weapon skill 4, strength and toughness 4, 2 wounds apiece, and 2 attacks for 20 points. There's a slew of rules that come with all of these, but what makes them all the different animals interesting? So what sets them apart? The forest cat has armor bane 1 on its attacks. The boars come with furious charge inbuilt, so if you could give them frenzy also, that's really going to start stacking up for attacks. They also have razor tusks. Razor tusks is going to give them an AP characteristic of 1 when the turn in which they charge. And then your bears have cleaving blow, which is like the baby killing blow, essentially, that you've seen in other armies, as well as armored hide 1. So that was a lot of rules here. Basically, you take beast handlers, and then they take one of 4 choices of animals, essentially, to sort of deck them out. My favorite here, I would say, is the boar. The Sylvan boars, they're strength and toughness 4, which is something that there's not a lot of in this army. So having strength 4, but especially toughness 4, is a really important breakpoint in this game. And then when you see that they come with, they got AP on the turn that they charge. They've got an extra attack from Furious Charge. You can easily in this army just give them Frenzy also, which will pump them up to 3 attacks on the charge, and then 3 attacks for a 11-point model with Strength Toughness 4. Is not a bad amount of offensive output. So, but I'm overall there's not a great unit, but I think you could do something maybe with the boars in the Army of Infamy. But aside from that, overall, I'm not taking the Army of Infamy to bring Beast Pack specifically. They're not like a marquee unit here. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about them is they're not pointed super crazy. I guess
Yeah.
if you're going like into the boar or the bear, sorry, they're 20 points a model. That's a little high. Although you
Yeah.
do got the strength 4, toughness 4, and they have 2 wounds apiece, so they're a little bit more defensible. Um, it's rough. Like cleaving blows good on the bear if you're fishing for sixes, which I don't think is the best way to do things. Um, I think you're right in terms of like the boar is sort of the best out of the 4 options.
Yeah.
Um, depending on sort of what you want the role to be. I can see uh, not even the
It's
dog.
yeah, it's rough, man.
Yeah, like it would have been nice if like one of these things had scouts. So you can have sort of like this weird little pack of animals and the handler like jumping in the backfield or something. But really, unless you're using like the first 2 as screening units, like they're kind of not very good. And then the boar and the bear, depending on if you want something a little bit more tanky or something with a little bit more damage output. Um, I think those are going to be your 2 go-tos.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, even with like the extra tankiness of toughness 4, it's only on a 6-up armor save from armored hide. So I mean,
Yeah, I'm thinking more like the 2 wounds on the bears.
sure, okay,
Like, sure, they're only strength toughness 4. Um, but you buy like say for 20 points a piece. Say you buy like 5 bears. That's 10 wounds someone's got to like chop through, right? So,
yeah. So that'd be 5 bears 100, and then 5 keepers that would be 150 points.
well,
Yikes!
it'd be 1 keeper, right?
No. One keeper can only take 1 bear, and then you need a second keeper to take the second bear.
Oh shit, I totally skipped that. That sucks then. Never mind.
Yeah.
I thought it
So
was like
I'm
you take the keeper and then you can pick like a pack of whatever
an
was with them.
unlimited amount of bears. Yeah.
Yeah, just like a bear horde. No,
Yeah.
okay then yeah, definitely the boar is the way to go.
Yeah,
The
and
very
even then, like it's not great because it's 22 points for 2 wounds. Yeah, that don't have too much out, but like, yeah, it's not great. But I think the boar is the best one
you
out of
buy the
out of.
pig that every elf in all of fantasy is known for is the animal closely associated with them. Pig
Yes, exactly. The spirit animal of these of the Orion's wild hunt is
is a
pigs.
pig.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
brutal.
Yeah, so I think this is a bit of a miss this unit. But if you're like building to theme, go for it and have a bunch of pigs with your army. But yeah. Okay, all right. So we've run our way through this through the Army of Infamy. I think overall you heard us that it's not like it's not going to shake up the competitive meta very much. It's not. I think it's not as strong as the Grand Army for sure. Just because a lot of the strength of this faction overall is like in its ballistics shooting and specifically like all the ancillary poison shooting you can bring to the table. Not having a level 4, not having access to all that shooting, although you can take the scouts in Deepwood Scouts and rare, I get it there, but like losing on that, and then your rules that you get are not enough to sort of make up, I think, the ground that's been lost, and then you don't have enough units either to really sell me on this. Like Orion's like great thematically, but very expensive and quite flimsy, and then the beast packs are, as we just discussed, rough. So yeah, I think it'll be a fun list. And you'll need to be a good pilot to make it work. It also has some really rough matchups, as I mentioned earlier. Um, but it's fun. Like everybody likes a go fast, die hard type of list. So yeah, it'll be fun to play. What are your thoughts on this one, Andrew?
I'm a little less negative on the list.
Okay.
I think I really like I agree that it's not gonna be competitive. Um, but I do like the theme of it. I do like what they try to do with sort of, the composition of this army, as well as like Orion seems really cool. Taking away his points value, like he definitely fits in this army perfectly. He is like we highlighted a little bit overpriced, or a lot overpriced.
Yeah.
But like he fits right in. Like he's got all the rules. He's got like some good damage output. It's just unfortunate that he's almost 500 points. It is kind of unfortunate that the beast packs weren't more impactful or a little bit better, because that was kind of one of the things when they were highlighting Wood Elves coming out, that like, hey, look, we're bringing back the super old unit. You would think it would be a little bit better on the table, but just like the other foot options in this army, unless you're taking the dogs, like they're kind of gonna get left behind. Even the boars, movement 6, like, yeah, that's good, but when you're taking into account that you're probably having mostly mounted fast cav slash not furious charge, what's the word,
Frenzy.
no, the other one, the extra d6,
Swift Stride, sorry.
swift stride. Most of your stuff's gonna have swift stride. Like, these guys are just gonna get left in the dust. It kind of sucks in that regard. And again, it would have been nice to see on like a more competitive side if there was a way, if they brought back, say, the old frenzy rule where it was like a leadership test, and be like, the wild hunt has controlled frenzy. They still frenzy up and go, but like it's focused. So then there was a way to mitigate sort of that, well, we just always have to charge aspect of the frenzy rule in old world. I think this list would have been a lot better, but like right now as it stands, like you're just not going to be able to control it on the tabletop. It's almost like it auto plays. Like you put it down, you deploy it, and then it just starts charging at random, and you have no say in sort of what it does other than maybe what its target's going to be. So I think that's going to hurt it overall. But again, theme-wise, I think this is a really cool list. Like, I kind of want to make up some weird like scenario where this army, like we play a forest map, and like we put like a bunch of forests on the table, and like your army's going through, and then it gets attacked by the wild hunt, and you gotta kind of like fight your way off the table or something. I think that would be a cool way to play this, but that totally steps out of sort of the competitive side of things, and you're just doing like cool themed battles and stuff like that. I think this works for that, but like tournament wise, like I think it's gonna be hard to make this work properly, just because you can't control what this army does on the table. As much as I like this army, like I think it's awesome.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, if you wanted to make it have a little bit more oomph, like at least say, for instance, because you're not controlling anything and it's so glass hammery, everything in the army gets frenzy and everything gets furious charge. And then just like, and then it would be just a wild skew that people would need to account for. But it still wouldn't break the bank. Like I think it still gets beat by a lot of other stuff out there, but we're not going even half that as far as that. So it's it's going to fall a little bit short, but it's fine. It's fun. It's thematic. It lets you bring a new archetype to the army that you don't see very often. I'm there for it, I guess. Awesome. Okay, so let's wrap this one up. As I mentioned, we'll save the magic items for the next episode. The only thing I'm going to say here before we wrap up, so our next episode will be the host of Taliesin, and we'll cover the magic items in that one, and then we'll do a bit of an after action report on how CTC went for Ryan and I. It's been a pleasure to be with everybody here this evening. Make sure you sign up for the Ottawa Old World GT that Ryan's running in early June. And looking forward to take a look at the other Army of Infamy, which I think is better than this one, frankly, and is going to be interesting to look at too. Andrew, anything on your end?
No, I think we covered it all.
All right, perfect. Have a good evening, listeners. Bye-bye.
Bye.